What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tomatolito Boxing Show, and let's talk about this big, mega-sized event that's taking place, and I guess mega event or huge event taking place out in Riyadh. It was a mega event where Turki Al-Sheikh has been putting on event after event, especially the mega event that he put down in December, or put together this past December, as known as the Day of Reckoning, where pretty much any and every big heavyweight that means something within the rankings, with the exception of a few, were present on that card. And including light heavyweight Dimitry Bivol, who was also active there. Cruiserweight Jayo Pataya was active on that card. And just about anybody that has a name and that is leaving their mark out in the heavyweight division was present. The exceptions were Zhang and Joe Joyce, because they were involved in a rubber match or two matches earlier in 2023. Their first showdown and then the rematch. Andy Ruiz, who was out after recovering from surgery, he was nowhere to be found. And then, of course, Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, who at that point were scheduled to have their undisputed showdown in February. Of course, that ended up falling through due to Tyson Fury's injury, and the fight got delayed to last weekend or 2 weekends ago, where we ended up witnessing the undisputed championship matchup and Alexander Usyk crowning himself as undisputed champ for the second time in his career in as many divisions. Now, this fight this weekend was surrounded, and the whole card, this whole event was built around the main event. And it was a main event of magnitude, which was going to pin the likes of Dimitry Bivol, the WBA Light-Heavyweight Champion, and now IBO Light-Heavyweight Champion, lifting that from Lyndon Arthur back in December, against arguably the best light heavyweight of the last few years, with the man who sits with a 100% knockout ratio, Arthur Beterbiev, who holds the WBC, the Lineal, the IBF, and the WBO titles, coming off his victory against Callum Smith. This event was built around the light heavyweight undisputed match, which was to take place just 2 weeks after the heavyweight undisputed match that we just mentioned. A huge, mega type fight that we've all been clamoring for, similar to that of Usyk and Fury, that needed a big supporting cast built around it. Turki Al-Sheikh stepped up, challenged two promoters that he's been working alongside with and worked alongside with to put together the Day of Reckoning last December, them being Queensberry Promotions' Frank Warren and Matchroom Boxing's Eddie Hearn. He built this card as a 5 versus 5. Queensberry puts up their best 5 fighters. Turki Al-Sheikh called out the divisions that he wanted to highlight, and Eddie Hearn would put up his best 5 fighters to match those against Frank Warren. The Frank Warren-Hearn rivalry goes back to the days that Eddie Hearn started promoting boxing out in the UK. Frank Warren was known as the top dog in the UK, as the best promoter, and Eddie Hearn became his biggest rival. This rivalry is not between Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, but it also dates back all the way to Eddie Hearn's dad when he was involved in boxing and the sports world, for that matter, where he had certain control of television networks, and that is Barry Hearn, Eddie Hearn's dad. He had control of certain television networks and had his hand also within the boxing world. And the rivalry between Frank Warren and Barry Hearn was something that everybody was aware of and everybody knew about. Eddie Hearn entered, took over the business for his dad, grew it to new proportions, to new magnitudes, to new levels, and made Matchroom Boxing what it is today, along with having his hand in the building and the executing of what we know as DAZN, which is the absolute best streaming service there is out there at the moment. And has revolutionized boxing. It put Showtime Boxing out of work. It put HBO Boxing out of work in the old pay-per-view format. ESPN Plus has his hands in there, but does not match what Matchroom is doing alongside DAZN. Amazon, of course, the newest company to throw their name in the hat as far as streaming boxing. And they're doing that alongside PBC, US-based promotional company, Al Heyman's PBC. This rivalry has dated back for decades. And it was only fitting that Turki Al-Sheikh would make this 5 versus 5, something that we had not seen in boxing, something that we would always want to see, but we would never imagine that it would come to fruition, and Turki Al-Sheikh has made it a reality. Are they the biggest names fighting? No. Some are, some aren't. But they are very solid fights. All 5 fights are very solid. The main event suffers a hiccup because Artur Beterbiev has to step out of the fight due to a meniscus tear and having to undergo surgery. Dimitry Bivol is left without a dance partner. The undisputed title fight is off. Dimitry Bivol, having undergone the camp and preparation for Artur Beterbiev, wanted to stay part of the card. And the WBA came in and named Malik Zinad as the number 1 contender and title contender that would be stepping in against Dimitry Bivol. Bivol accepted for the sake of staying active. And you got to congratulate Dimitry Bivol. You got to applaud him for doing so. He could have easily sat out and waited for Beterbiev to come back and reschedule this fight. He wants to put that title on the line. He wants to be active. He wants to remain active. He just lifted the IBO title in quick fashion and easy fashion against Lyndon Arthur out in December after a long layoff. He got right back into action, wants to remain active, putting both titles on the line against Malik Zinad. Zinad, who's a lesser-known fighter who does not have the type of opposition in his resume, the likes of Dimitry Bivol, has not faced that type of competition, that type of level of opposition, is named the number 1 contender for the WBA, and the WBA will be sanctioning this for Dimitry Bivol. His last fight for Zinad came against Jerome Pampelone, where he won a 12-round majority decision against Jerome Pampelone, who was undefeated at that time, 18-0. And this fight was for the number 2 spot. It was an IBF eliminator for the number 2 spot within the IBF organization. So you could make the case for Malik Zinad that he's been climbing up steadily up those rankings, and he's ranked really high, number 2 within the IBF, and number 1 with the WBA. He was in line for Artur Beterbiev, who holds the IBF light-heavyweight title, and now got the shot of a lifetime to face Dimitry Bivol. He's coming into the ring with a 22-0 record, 16 knockouts to his credit. But again, the young fighter, born in Libya, who resides in Pieta, Malta, does not have the body of work that makes a strong case for him to be able to pull off an upset against Dimitry Bivol. Of course, the saying goes that every single person that steps through those ropes has a puncher's chance. Absolutely, he does. He's got a fair or average level combination attack, okay footwork, not the fastest as far as delivery or punch output, doesn't have a heavy punch output, is just your average journeyman, even though he's undefeated. But he has that journeyman type, road warrior type of attack. He feels out the opponent, finds the openings, takes a shot at the openings, jab, jab, follow up. 1-2, 1-1, 1-2 type combinations, where he's going to have his hands full against Dimitry Bivol, who is all pressure all the time. Dimitry Bivol is the type that will pressure you even if he's not throwing punches, because he's in your face, making you react, making you hesitate, making you question whether you're in position or out of position. Meanwhile, he's not really throwing anything but exploiting your openings, and then he ends up landing something of note. He exploits the weaknesses. He's very good at pressuring both offensively and defensively. Very good footwork, very good hands, really good combinations, and has really good pop. Meaning if he hits you 2 of 3 punches, if he lands 2 of his 3 punches, 2 are going to be hurting the opponent. He doesn't load up on his punches, doesn't throw wild punches, very calculated, very efficient. Dimitry Bivol with good power behind his punches. Great that Malik Zinad is getting the opportunity. Even better that Dimitry Bivol is choosing to stay active and get this mandatory out of the way, because it's only going to be better for him down the long run. You get your mandatory out of the way, and to my understanding, pretty much all organizations are the same way, where they require that you defend their title at least once a year. So if you have multiple titles, well, you're going to be cruising around the year, ideally, quote unquote, defending or fighting the number one contenders throughout the year. So if you get 2-3 fights, well, you're putting your titles on the line and defending against the number one contenders of each of the organizations. That's how it should work. You defend it at the minimum 1 time a year. Dimitry Bivol only has the WBA, well, he has the IBO title now, but with the WBA title, this is going to eliminate that contender, that number one contender spot, which means it will free him up until next June, because this fight's going to take place June 1st, which opens him up to the mega fight with Artur Beterbiev, opens him up for any type of mega fight type events if he wants to hold one, say a rematch with Canelo, a catchweight, any type of a mega event or fan favorite type fight that he wants to take place in or take part of, he'll be able to do it because he just got his mandatory out of the way. I'm not discarding Malik Zinad, but let's call it what it is. He's not at the level of Dimitry Bivol, and this should be a good victory for Dimitry Bivol. It should be a solid victory for Dimitry Bivol. How he decides to end it is going to be up to him. He looked very good. He picked up where he left off, even though he had a long layoff leading to December. I think it was an 11-month layoff that he was coming off of, maybe a 13-month layoff. When he went into the Lyndon Arthur fight, he looked good. Rust wasn't an issue. He got the cobwebs, shook the cobwebs out immediately within the first, second round and got to work. And he looked good. He looked solid against Lyndon Arthur. And this is the reason why he wants to stay active. He wants to be an active competitor, an active champion. So you got to applaud him for that instead of sitting on the title and holding the title hostage and just waiting around for that big money fight. He's looking to stay active. This is only going to make him better when he does get the chance to step in the ring against Artur Beterbiev, who is older, who is continuously has suffered numerous injuries in the past few years, numerous setbacks. The older Artur Beterbiev, who's a dominant force, a dominant machine within the light heavyweights, and has a stranglehold of the other 3 titles, 100% knockout ratio to his credit, but he is getting older. And again, tally another injury for him, Dimitry Bivol staying active is going to be in a better position. People were thinking that Beterbiev would win by knockout. Well, it's easy to say that because Beterbiev has a 100% knockout ratio, but let's look at everything else. Dimitry Bivol is active. And should he look impeccable this coming Saturday, which I expect that he's going to look really good, and stops Malik Zinad, if he makes easy work for him and stops him, he's going to be in a really good spot going into that Beterbiev fight when it does get rescheduled. If he chooses to go to a decision, hopefully he doesn't take too much injuries or suffer some type of major injury to where it will cause him to suffer any major setbacks. But I really feel that this is up to Dimitry Bivol to win however he wants. If he wants to get rounds under his belt, he could take it the long way. If he wants to end Malik Zinad, the openings are there. Just watching and doing a little bit of video work on Malik Zinad, I think Dimitry Bivol is going to find the openings, and he'll find them probably within the first half of the fight. Very likely. So Dimitry Bivol, who was supposed to be the main event against Artur Beterbiev, I don't see him being the main event anymore, because the 5v5 has taken the attention away from Dimitry Bivol now that Artur Beterbiev is out. And I see Bivol and Zinad either being the co-main event or maybe the third fight, with the co-main event being Filip Hrgovic against Daniel Dubois, and then the main event being Deontay Wilder, Zhilei Zhang. I don't see Dimitry Bivol being the main event. I don't know exactly how the order of the fights yet. But I have a feeling that he's going to be the co-main event just because of his status within the boxing world. So Dimitry Bivol, again, the man going into this fight undefeated, 22-0 with 11 knockouts, putting his 2 titles on the line against Malik Zinad, who holds a similar record of 22-0 with 16 knockouts, more knockouts to his favor. The record states that Zinad is a heavier puncher than Bivol, but you got to look at the level of opposition that each of them have faced. Is he a serious threat for Bivol? Not as serious as you may think, but similar record to Bivol. Both of them 22-0. The higher knockout percentage goes to Malik Zinad. Interesting fight, but I'm giving this one to Dimitry Bivol. I would like to see and see how you guys are calling that fight. How you guys are weighing that fight. So don't hesitate. Email me or leave me a comment. Reach out to me on X. Reach out to me on Instagram once you see this post up there. Leave me a comment. I want to hear from you guys to see how you guys see this Bivol fight, because both of them have undefeated records with the same amount of wins, but Zinad has the edge of knockout percentage. But the level of opposition, the resume, I usually put a lot of weight on that, and I'm giving the favor and leaning towards Dimitry Bivol pulling this fight out with not too much resistance. I feel like Bivol's going to be fairly comfortable and cruise to a good victory, whether it's decision or by stoppage. So then we go into the 5v5. The fight that I feel that is going to kick off this card is going to be Willie Hutchinson against Craig Richards. Willie Hutchinson fighting for Queensberry Promotions, representing Frank Warren. Craig Richards representing Eddie Hearn. 17-1 Willie Hutchinson against Craig Richards, 18-3-1. Richards has the better resume of the two. As far as professional ranks go, limited amateur career, Willie Hutchinson, the most decorated amateur out of Scotland. So he has a higher pedigree as far as pure boxing is concerned, Willie Hutchinson does. But he doesn't have the level of opposition and the experience in the pro ranks that Craig Richards does. Craig Richards lost a decision to Dimitry Bivol, who we were just talking about. Took Bivol all 12 rounds. Those scorecards against Bivol were 115-114, 115-113, both of those for Dimitry Bivol, and 118-110. All 3 cards, unanimous decision for Dimitry Bivol. Craig Richards, according to 2 of those judges, was in the running and within a couple rounds of having beat Dimitry Bivol by decision. Just think about that experience. Not too much amateur pedigree, not too much amateur experience, but he's jumped right into the shark-infested waters of the pro ranks and has held his own. He lost a unanimous decision 2 fights later against Joshua Buatsi, who has Olympic pedigree for the UK. 15-0 going into that fight, Joshua Buatsi. Richards lost a unanimous decision to him. That was May of 22. And he since fought in February of this year and defeated Boris Crichton. In a stay busy fight for Craig Richards, he steps into the ring with 18 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 11 by way of knockout of his 18 victories. Willie Hutchison, bringing all that experience from the amateur days, the most decorated boxer as far as amateur boxing is concerned to come out of Scotland, highly touted, highly favored, steps into the ring with a 17-1 record with 13 knockouts to his credit. That one defeat that he has, he was stopped. And he suffered it against Lennox Clark back in 2020. So 4 years removed from that loss, that TKO loss that he suffered in the 5th round to Lennox Clark, he's bounced back. And he's riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this fight with Craig Richards. Again, the level of opposition is huge, in my opinion. Similar to what we're talking about Malik Zinad. Willie Hutchison, very good pedigree, very good boxer. He's going to give Craig Richards problems. But as far as problem solving and adaptability in the ring within the pro ranks, you gotta favor Craig Richards. I think it's going to be a complex fight for Richards. I think it's going to be a strategic fight where Willie Hutchison's boxing is going to look dominant and look impressive, but Craig Richards is going to have to set traps. The type of traps that you could do within the pro ranks by roughing up the fight, by muddying the waters, stuff that you can't do in the amateurs. I think experience is going to play a role. And I think Craig Richards is, in my opinion, favorite to win this fight over Willie Hutchison just by way of experience. He's a rugged road warrior who's been in there and willing to mix it up. And you got the young Willie Hutchison who has all the talent in the world, but has not experienced the top echelon of the division. And Craig Richards is not the top echelon, but has shared the ring with the top dogs of the light heavyweights. When stuff got rough, when the fight got rough for Willie Hutchison, he got shaken up and got taken out by Lennox Clark in the 5th round. Was stopped. Very, very good fight. Very compelling fight because a win for Willie Hutchison skyrockets his stock in his career. This is a solid opponent for Willie Hutchison to get him into new levels of opposition for his upcoming fights as he continues to climb up the ranks. Whereas Craig Richards will get a solid win against a solid opponent in Hutchison and maintain his status within the top 10 of the light heavyweights. And in line to challenge another big name. And eventually, or potentially, getting himself back into title contention. So I believe this is a fight that's going to kick off open up the evening, the card. From there, I'm going to say that Hamzah Sheeraz, even though he's the captain, maybe not. I think the next fight from there is going to be Ray Ford against Nick Ball. The pint-sized wrecking machine, Nick Ball, who is coming off a controversial loss to the likes of featherweight champ Ray Vargas. Or it was a draw, I believe, that the fight ended up in against Ray Vargas. That was earlier this year. Ray Vargas retained his title by way of that draw. Many people think that Ray Vargas is the toughest or at least the most experienced featherweight champion. Maybe the most experienced, but I don't think he's the best champion out of the 126 division. Divino Espinosa, I think, is probably the weaker one. He's coming up in a fight. He lifted the title from Robeisy Ramirez. Impressive victory. But I think he's the youngest, and I think he's the weaker of the 4 champions. I think Ray Ford is right up there and would give anybody a run for their money. And if he stops Nick Ball, that's going to show you the level where Ray Ford is at versus what Ray Vargas could not do against this pint-sized warrior. And then you got Venado Lopez, with many people knocking on the door, like Ronnie Rios, like Angelo Leo, Brandon Figueroa, who are knocking on the door of these champs, ready to get their shot. Luis Neri, who just coming off the loss to Naoya Inoue, he just threw his name in the hat for the 126, competitors and champs. So Nick Ball had a really good fight with Ray Vargas, where Ray Vargas is tall, he's lanky, he's awkward. Nick Ball, his height seems to pose a lot of problems because he's so short. And his small stature poses a lot of problems for taller fighters because he's able to get in on the inside. He has good speed, good footwork, gets in on the inside and starts tearing away at that body and lunges punches from awkward angles, which catches the taller fighters off guard because those punches are not coming from the outside, but from a lower angle in an upward motion, often catching them on the forehead, on the top of the ear, on the nose, where they're used to blocking for hooks, looping punches. These ones are coming from different angles from the bottom up because of his small stature. Ray Ford is a little bit shorter, a lot shorter than Ray Vargas, and he's just a little bit taller than Nick Ball. So Ray Ford likes to fight low. He has a really tight guard, drops his chin, really tight guard, high guard around the cheekbones. He's going to fight low and fight down to the stature of Nick Ball. Nick Ball, the stronger puncher of the two. Ray Ford, the better boxer and the better tactician of the two. Remember his fight that he had against Kolmatov? What an amazing fight this past December where he became champion. A fight where Kolmatov looked like he was a favorite to win the fight. He had the upper hand throughout the fight. He had momentum numerous times within the fight. And it looked like he was about to stop Ray Ford several times during the fight. A back and forth matchup between the two where Ray Ford managed to switch momentum to his favor and executed. The killer instinct is there for Ray Ford, and that's what he has every single one of his fights, that when he recognizes when the opponent is hurt and he goes in for the kill. That's the case. That's what happened with Kolmatov. If you remember how that last succession ended, he hurts Kolmatov, goes in for the kill. Kolmatov starts stepping back, losing his footing. As he's bouncing back towards the ropes hold him. He turns his back completely to Ford. Ford ends up chasing after him, lands a left hand, while Kolmatov's back is completely given to Ray Ford. Ford's hand loops around to the front of the face and still catches him as the referee stepping in to wave off the fight. A fighter that was not defending himself anymore, a fighter that was well knocked out on his feet, and Ray Ford crowned himself as the champion. This is a very interesting fight. Is it a 50-50 fight? No, I think Ray Ford has the upper hand on this one against Nick Ball. But let's see, because a lot of people are crying that there was robbery, that he should have been the new WBC champ. Ray Vargas, in a way, outboxed Nick Ball. But it was such a hard fight to score where the bigger punches and the momentum definitely lied on the favor of Nick Ball. Whenever Ball would lunge forward, he would catch. The heavier punches definitely were delivered by him. The moments, the moments that got people on their feet, that got people oohing and awing and applauding, were when Nick Ball was attacking forward, lunging forward, and catching Ray Vargas clean. He's just wrecking through him. But aside from those moments, Ray Vargas would dance around, land his jab, try to box from the outside, land some punches of note. And it was such a hard fight to score that in the end, that ended up being deemed a draw. And Rey Vargas may have very well lucked out by walking out with his title because of the draw. Many feel that it was a robbery. Many feel that Nick Ball should have deservingly won that fight and been crowned champion, where this would have been a unification fight. We'll see where he's at, because this is a completely different opponent. This is a faster opponent than Rey Vargas, a lower opponent or smaller opponent than Rey Vargas, so he's going to be right there in the face of Nick Ball. Faster delivery, faster punching delivery, heavier punch output by Ray Ford, where he delivers combinations, whereas Rey Vargas doesn't. Rey Vargas completely mismatched by way of stature, where he had to completely open himself up to try to land body shots and try to land body shots from a distance. Ray Ford's going to be right there, and he initiates his attack by way of the body and then brings his attack upwards to the head. Nick Ball does a similar attack but likes to body snatch a lot. Nick Ball lunges forward, leans in with his head, willing to clash heads, makes it dirty, makes it rough. A lot of clinching, a lot of pushing, a lot of lunging forward, hits the body, and throws those wild haymakers to the head. If Ray Ford controls the inside, and boxistically maintains order on the inside, and stops Nick Ball in his tracks from lunging forward, like exactly what I'm just explaining, if he's able to hold him and stop him in his tracks and turn it into a boxing match, the speed and the combinations definitely favor Ray Ford. The pint-sized wrecking ball versus Savage Ford slightly favors Ray Ford, but it's going to be a hell of a fight, and Ray Ford putting his newly acquired WBA title on the line. We move on from there, and I think the next one in order will be Hamzah Sheeraz against Ammo Williams. Another very good fight where both of these fighters... And hold on, let me pause real quick so I could give you the records of these guys. Ray Ford going into the fight with Nick Ball 15-0, undefeated, unblemished record. Well, undefeated record, but there is a blemish. He has a draw in his record. So he's 15-0-1. The draw came back in 2021 against Aaron Perez. It was an 8-round fight. Aaron Perez was undefeated at that time, 10-0 record. Both fighters in similar statuses or stages in their careers when that fight took place. That ended up being an 8-round draw. Other than that, Ray Ford is perfect, 15-0. That one draw to his credit, or in his record. 8 knockouts. 8 knockouts in his favor out of the 15 wins. Nick Ball has been active a little bit longer, 19-0, with 11 knockouts to his credit. Undefeated record, but also with a blemish. Similar to Ray Ford, he has a draw, and that draw is the one we were just talking about that came in his very last outing against WBC featherweight champ Rey Vargas. Both undefeated fighters, 19-0 against 15-0. Similar knockout ratio, similar knockout records. Both of them in similar stages of their career. Very interesting fight. I'm interested to hear from you how you guys have it. We then go to Ammo Williams and Hamzah Sheeraz. Boxistically speaking, as far as boxing pedigree, amateur records, amateur experience, height, punching power, well, I'm going to say height and punch output. is going to be leaning on the side of Hamzah Sheeraz, along with amateur experience. Very good boxing pedigree, but IBO Williams is no slouch in those categories either. He also partook in the USA amateur boxing, USA boxing amateur ranks, did the circles for numerous years, never got to represent the country, but very good amateur background as well. Hamzah Sheeraz is coming into this fight as the captain for Queensberry Promotions. This is Frank Warren's captain. This fight is a middleweight fight. And he's coming into this as the captain for Queensberry Promotions with a 19-0 record, 15 knockouts to his credit. His very last outing, Liam Williams, where he stopped him in the first round. Hard punching, long reach, 3-inch height advantage over IBO Williams. Very high punch output for Hamzah Sheeraz. IBO Williams, very similar status and in a similar stage in his career as that of Sheeraz. 16-0 with 11 knockouts to his credit. His very last fight, Armel Mbumba Yasa, who was undefeated himself when he stepped in the ring against IBO Williams. IBO stopped him in the 7th round. That fight took place February of this year. Both of them active, both of them climbing up the ranks, similar positions. IBO Williams, I think, is the heavier puncher of the two, with Sheeraz as the heavier output, possesses a heavier output, puts more punches out there. Both of them with similar types of defense. Punches will get through. They will hurt one another. I think the heavier hands favor IBO Williams, where accumulation of damage would favor Sheeraz. The height is going to be a big issue for IBO to deal with. The reach is going to be a big issue for IBO to deal with. The footwork, the more traditional footwork, lies on the hands of, or lies on the side of Sheeraz. He's the traditional boxer with decent in and out movement. Not the greatest lateral movement. IBO Williams is a little more unorthodox with a wider stance where he's quick to cover ground, gets in, gets out, and circles the opponents in quick fashion where he throws punches from different angles. Very unorthodox approach where it could definitely pose problems for Hamzah Sheeraz. Very, very interesting fight, and in my opinion, this is the only 50-50 fight that I have out of the entire card. There's one that I'm undecided on, and we'll talk about it, but this is the 50-50 card in my opinion. The 50-50 fight where they're both in similar stages in their career with similar levels of opposition. Neither has faced better opposition than the other. Both of them are climbing up exactly at the same rate or in similar rates, being moved up in exactly similar fashion. And both have very good technique and more pros and cons respectively. Very interesting, where I feel that a punch is going to change this. I think that Sheeraz, with the accumulation of punches, if he fights tall, if he keeps the fight in the center of the ring, he fights tall and unleashes his punches downrange, mixing his attack between body and center, controlling the fight by way of the jab, I think he's going to give a lot of problems to IBO Williams. IBO, on the other hand, because he's so unorthodox, he's going to find success by landing power, something of note, something that will send Sheeraz stumbling and hold him in his tracks. He's going to have to move in and out, duck in and out, feint, try to land something from a weird angle, either a weird uppercut or like an awkward landing uppercut or a looping punch, exploiting a brief opening of Hamzah Sheeraz. The footwork will be the key, and the punching power of ammo will be the key for him to victory, where I feel that Hamzah Sheeraz has more in his arsenal to be able to control the fight in maybe a slow and methodical fashion. Very, very interesting fight. We move on to the next one, which is a very, very interesting heavyweight fight, which is Daniel Dubois against Filip Hrgović. Hrgović was stout. He was basically being named as the next opponent for Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua ended up fighting Francis Ngannou. This is after their big December showdowns. Filip Hrgović was supposed to fight Anthony Joshua for the interim IBF title for the heavyweight division. This all came about after the Fury-Usyk fight got canceled in February. They were going to make this fight in the running, Joshua Hrgović. It didn't happen. Joshua fought Ngannou. Hrgović is coming into this fight now against Daniel Dubois, both who were active at the Day of Reckoning in December. Filip Hrgović fought Mark Damori, who was an opponent with a good record when he stepped into the ring, a veteran fighter, but was not really a big threat. This is a fighter that had a past with Hrgović. They were sparring partners at one point. Hrgović just went in there and destroyed him. A TKO in the first round. He just walked right through him, threw power, hit him in every which possible way that he could, including the back of the head, the side of the head, the front of the head, you name it. He just destroyed Mark Damori, got him out of there, 1 round, quick knockout fashion. The minute 46 mark is where the fight ended. Hrgović, long camp, easy work, has been resting since, no damage, is in great shape going into this fight. Daniel Dubois was active that same night. He had a tougher opponent where he ended up fighting Gerald Miller. Now, Daniel Dubois and Hrgović have history between each other where they used to be sparring partners several years back. Hrgović used to manhandle Dubois. Numerous stories out there of Hrgović just manhandling and just giving lesson after lesson and punking Daniel Dubois. Dubois is more than hyped for this challenge. There's 2 things that go on here where I'm slightly favoring Filip Hrgović. Hrgović possesses a lot of power, very good combinations, and very quick with his combinations. He fights tall, he fights very direct, gets in the face of his opponents. Daniel Dubois is a very good boxer with a wider stance, a lot more methodical as far as his attack. He's not right in your face, but he tries to box more than engage and slug it out. Daniel Dubois, with that fight against Gerald Miller, found himself in a really, really tough fight where Gerald Miller hit him with some really, really big punches. They took it to each other. They hurt each other. They stumbled each other. Each of them were on shaky street, shaky legs at several points throughout the fight. Daniel Dubois ended up coming out with the stoppage of the night, in my opinion, where he ends up pulling out that TKO stoppage over Gerald Miller in the very last round of their fight. They had a 10-round fight, and at the 2-minute and 52-second mark of the 10th round, the fight is called off, and Daniel Dubois pulled off the stoppage of the night. Again, in my opinion, that was a stoppage of the night where it got the people on their feet, off their seats, and cheering for what Daniel Dubois had just done. This was his big comeback fight for Dubois. For Gerald Miller, it was his big return into the pro ranks, at least into the upper echelon of the heavyweight ranks, because he had been out since that fight got canceled, where he tested positive like 3 or 4 times when he was supposed to have that big title fight against Anthony Joshua in New York. He ended up stepping out. Andy Ruiz entered, and Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua on that night at Madison Square Garden, doing the impossible and becoming heavyweight champ. Jarrell Miller, since that fight, had fought Lucas Brown, Derek Cardenas to get himself back into contention. But he got stopped against Daniel Dubois just before the fight ended. Dubois has punching power. Dubois has good combinations. He has good speed, good boxing, good IQ. How's he going to handle the power of Filip Hrgović? He's dealt with power, numbing power, at the hands of Joe Joyce, who damaged him and busted his orbital bone, where he took a knee and stopped. He checked out mentally against Usyk, a fight where he technically beat Usyk with that body shot, which became a big controversy and a big topic within the boxing realms, whether it was legal or illegal, whether it was below the line or above the line or on the line. In the end, I think Dubois landed a really solid body shot that took Usyk out. He should have been crowned the champion, in my opinion. Usyk ended up killing a lot of time. The referee saw it his way, gave him more than enough time to recover. He sold it. He got away with it. Usyk came back, started outboxing Dubois. Dubois mentally got shaken out of the fight. He took himself out of the fight. He should have kept the pressure on and didn't. And slowly Usyk started putting the pressure, landing good punches, and in the end stops Dubois by the 9th round, I think, is where he ends up losing. I didn't like that at all, because it's very telling where if the going gets tough, he's going to find a way out. And being that he has a history with Hrgović, this could very well be the case. Hrgović is a heavier puncher, very good combinations, but he is an in-your-face type fighter. He's going to approach Dubois similar to how he must have approached him in sparring sessions, feeling that he's above Dubois. Dubois was calling for this fight. He wants to face those demons. He wants to prove that whatever history they had between each other is just that, history. And that they're at different levels now. Dubois is asking for the top opponents. With the victory over Hrgović, you bet your ass that we're going to have Dubois and Joshua coming up soon, later this year. That would be the next best fight to make. Being that the rematch between Usyk has been announced for December this year. Maybe a Dubois and Joseph Parker. Andy Ruiz and Jarrell Miller, who Jarrell Miller's the last opponent who we're just talking about Dubois, whom he stopped. Jarrell Miller and Andy Ruiz are going to be fighting each other on that Turkey Al-Sheikh, California event taking place in August on the undercard of Crawford Madrimov. The fighter that replaced the other, Andy Ruiz, replaced Jarrell Miller, stepped in, last minute stand-in against Anthony Joshua and became champion on that night. Because Jarrell Miller got caught doping. So now they get to face off against each other. This is a very good fight in a very good stage of each of their careers, respective careers, for Hrgović and Daniel Dubois. I see that Hrgović has too much power. The issues that I have where I'm favoring Hrgović slightly is because Joe Joyce, what he suffered at the hands of, Daniel Dubois, what he suffered at the hands of Joe Joyce. When his eye was damaged, he took a knee. Very smart, because he could have suffered an even worse injury, bounced back, got back into his winning ways, got back into title contention. But then that mental shakeup, where he mentally took himself out of the fight against Usyk, is what's really bothering me. And if the going gets tough, which it will against Hrgović, will he check out? Will those old demons come revisit him of the old sparring sessions where many say that Hrgović used to get the best of Dubois and just sun him. So Hrgovic slightly favorite for me. Daniel Dubois coming into this fight with a 20-2 record at the absolute best stage of his career at the moment. 19 knockouts to his credit out of his 20 victories. Heavy punching, good combinations, good speed, good delivery, plenty of output on behalf of Daniel Dubois. The slower fighter, Hrgovic, but also the heavier puncher. Hrgovic fights very similar to that of Artur Beterbiev. Slower, not the quickest footwork, continues to go forward, eats a lot of punches en route to delivering heavy leather. But when he lands, and he ends the show. Footwork, speed on the side of Dubois, power on the side, and experience on the side of Hrgovic. He possesses the type of power Hrgovic does, where even though he's not so fast, he doesn't have the quickest footwork, he manages to cut off and corner his opponents because of his power. He hurts him to a certain state to where he's able to cut the ring at his own pace. Not with speed, but controls him with power. Very, very interesting fight. Filip Hrgovic, undefeated record, stepping into the ring with a 17-0 record, 14 knockouts to his credit. Has a victory over Zhilei Zhang, one that a lot of people questioned. A lot of people feel that it was controversial, that Zhang deserved the victory on that night. With the victory over Daniel Dubois, and Zhang with the victory in the main event, what I deem is going to be the main event against Deontay Wilder, you're going to see a rematch of Zhang and Hrgovic. Mark my words. Daniel Dubois beats Hrgovic. I don't see him fighting Zhilei Zhang or Deontay Wilder. I see him fighting Anthony Joshua in a big UK-sized fight. So that brings us to the very last fight of the night, and I feel that this is going to be the main event, replacing what was otherwise Dimitry Bivol Beterbiev. I don't think Bivol and Zinad is going to be the main event. They'll either be number 2 or number 3 on the card. Because Hrgovic Dubois, in my opinion, should be the co-main event. And now that that Bivol's fighting Zinad, Wilder and Zhang is definitely the main event. Wilder, the captain for Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing, and Wilder's coming off that really horrible performance against Joseph Parker at the Day of Reckoning in December. Zhilei Zhang is coming off a loss to Joseph Parker after back-to-back dominant performances against Joe Joyce. Manhandles a juggernaut, but is outboxed, even though he drops his power, is one to reckon at the heavyweight division. Every heavyweight has heavy leather, heavy punching power, but Zhilei Zhang is an exception where he hits exceptionally hard. He dropped Joseph Parker, but lost the decision. Joseph Parker, the ever so blue collar type fighter that he just keeps coming, keeps putting work. He's just your traditional blue collar boxer, continues to work, continues to chip away. And that's exactly what he did. He got dropped, he got shaken up, but recovered, stayed composed, took the fight to Zhang and outboxed him. And defeated Zhilei Zhang. What Joe Joyce couldn't do with his height and his boxing ability, because of the power of Zhilei Zhang, Joseph Parker did. Zhilei Zhang has 2 defeats in his record, 3 blemishes overall. He has a draw against a fighter by the name of Jerry Forrest, which came February of 2021. This was a 10-round fight, a majority draw. He has a decision loss to Filip Hrgovic, which we just mentioned. That was a 12-round fight, unanimous decision for Filip Hrgovic. That was in August of 22. And he has a majority decision draw against Joseph Parker in March of this year, where he dropped Joseph Parker in round 3, in round 8, but otherwise outboxed and outsmarted by the veteran Joseph Parker, who is at the absolute best moment in his career. And although he has losses in his record, he continues to improve. And Joseph Parker is the man that defeated Deontay Wilder in that same Day of Reckoning event this past December. Deontay Wilder stepping into the ring with a 43 win, 3 loss, 1 draw record. 42 knockouts of his 43 wins. He is the heaviest puncher in the history of heavyweight boxing, with the highest knockout ratio. His last decision win I'm trying to find it. And I'm pretty sure it had something to do with... Well, no, because that was a draw against Tyson Fury. So which one was his decision win? There you go. Bermane-Stiverne. So his last decision win was a unanimous decision win against Bermane-Stiverne, January of 2015. And that's when he became the WBC World Heavyweight Champion. All knockouts otherwise. He has a draw with Tyson Fury, the amazing trilogy between him and Fury, a draw with Tyson Fury, and then back-to-back losses where he got stopped in round 7 in the rematch and round 11 in the trilogy fight. He came back to knock out Robert Helenius in the first round, where somehow he generated so much power from such an awkward angle and managed to knock out Robert Helenius, leaving him stiff on the mat. That was in October of 22. In December of 23, he comes back and looked off. People are asking, and according to all the interviews and all the press and everything that's going on in the lead up to this fight, Deontay Wilder says that the old Deontay is back. Well, in December, we didn't see the old Deontay Wilder or vintage Deontay Wilder, but rather an old Deontay Wilder, who was just off, would not punch, would try to just be a one-trick pony, waiting and waiting and waiting to find the opening to land his big punch. And it never came because Joseph Parker was just in and outboxing him and landing heavy leather on him and just cruised to a victory. Unanimous decision, widespread decision, easy to score for Joseph Parker. Everybody was waiting for that punch, which is what we do whenever we watch Deontay Wilder, but it was not coming. He was a shell of himself and obviously a diminished version of what a Deontay Wilder that we were accustomed to seeing once was. And all this, more than likely, because of how much he lost in the 3 fights against Tyson Fury. Yet he says that the old Deontay Wilder is back, that he has rekindled the flame within himself, that his fire is back, and he is gonna knock Zhilei Zhang out. Undecided for me as to how this fight's gonna go. My gut tells me that Zhilei Zhang's power, when he lands it, is gonna bring memories of what Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder. And if Zhilei Zhang presses, rather than just drop Deontay and let him recover like he did with Joseph Parker, if he lands something of note, drops Deontay Wilder, and presses, he will stop Deontay Wilder and end him. Because I don't know if Deontay Wilder could handle something of note. Joseph Parker hit him with some really good leather. And Deontay Wilder stood stood his ground, even though he was on shaky legs, he would not go down. He held and held and held and cruised to a decision loss. Zhilei Zhang has different power. He dropped Joseph Parker twice. He hurt Joe Joyce in both of their fights. He has that type of stopping power where if he lands it, I don't know if Deontay Wilder is going to be able to answer the call. And if Zhilei Zhang lets him survive and recover, Zhilei Zhang is going to be in for a long night. Those exchanges from in close, from in the pocket, is going to be very telling because Zhang has very heavy hands from in close. Whereas Wilder could generate a lot of power from a multitude of angles with that right hand. If the Bronze Bomber pulls off a huge stoppage over Zhilei Zhang, his career will experience a resurgence, and you bet your ass that regardless of what happens between Dubois and Hrgovic, you know for a fact that Eddie Hearn being involved is going to set up a Deontay Wilder-Anthony Joshua mega fight, which is the one that the fans have been clamoring for a long time. No titles, just bragging rights. A fight that we've all been asking for so long, Wilder and Joshua. So the fact that Eddie Hearn has him for a one-fight contract and made him his captain, the captain of his team, means that he's going to set up something big for him if Deontay Wilder delivers. How do you pick against Deontay Wilder when he has 43 wins and 42 knockouts out of those 43 wins? He touches you, he erases you. But the question lies as to the last outing that Deontay Wilder had in the ring against Joseph Parker, where he was a shell of himself. That's where the doubts arise, and that's why I'm so undecided on this fight that I don't even want to make a pick. For Zhilei Zhang, we already saw what he's capable of. He's able to draw out the fight, have a long, drawn-out showdown like he did with Hrgovic. He has stopping power like he did with Joe Joyce in both fights. But he could get outboxed like he did against Joseph Parker when he faces a different level of pedigree or a higher boxing pedigree than what he possesses. He's very slow, very flat-footed, not very quick, looping haymakers, looping punches, hooks. That's it. All power, all the time. Deontay Wilder is not the boxer that Joseph Parker is. Deontay Wilder doesn't have that elusive footwork like Joseph Parker does or a traditional boxer does. So he's going to stay away, find the opening, and try to land that punch. Zhang knows it. Everybody knows it. Zhang's going to try to fight inside the pocket, and that's where he's going to find his success. Can Deontay Wilder weather the storm and land his punch? And if he does, night-night for Zhang. But if he doesn't, and he gets caught before, which chances are he will he answer the call? Will he answer the referee's count? Because he's going to get dropped by Zhang. In the minimum, if he doesn't go down, he's going to get caught, and Zhang pops. But if Wilder lands, because he is quicker and sends that missile in such a quick fashion that most fighters, 42 fighters, have not been able to contend it, even if they block it, like Luis Ortiz. Remember King Kong Ortiz blocking, and the punch went through his guard and knocked him out. That's the power that Deontay possesses. And if we're about to see vintage Deontay like he's announcing to the world this whole week and then the lead up to the fight, then we're in for a treat. But if we see a shell of himself, a shell of Deontay, and a similar version to what we saw in December, where he placed a one-trick pony, Zhang's going to pick him apart, get on the inside, and get rid of him. So that's a hard fight for me to pick. I don't even want to go there. Zhilei Zhang coming into the fight with 26-2-1, 21 knockouts to his credit. So high knockout ratio as well. Deontay Wilder, I don't think it gets any better, 42-43. That should be the main event in my opinion. Again, I don't know the order of the fights, so however I call them here for you, that's how I see them. That's how I see the order of the fights taking place. I'm not sure if that's how it's going to be, but we'll see. Come Saturday. Awesome, awesome event. It would have been even bigger with Bivol and Beterbiev, but it's big enough. So I can't wait to see how these fights turn out. What a mega episode. Over an hour. Over an hour. I'll be here as long as you guys want me to. Thank you guys again for all the love, for the downloads, for spreading the word, for helping the show continue to grow. And I'll be here as long as you guys will have me. We just broke the hour mark. Deservingly so, because this is a huge event coming Saturday. So I'll leave you guys all with that. Catch you guys all on the recap episode. And if there's anything else that pops up, well, you'll be first to know because you'll get the notification. Check out the YouTube channel where I had several interviews that took place out in San Diego, and many interviews I've uploaded from the past. And then obviously whatever podcast platform seems to be your favorite, you're getting the notification, so I appreciate that. Spread the word, share it with your friends and family, and let's keep this show growing. I owe it all to you guys. Thank you guys. Take care of yourselves. Have a great night and enjoy this hell of an event that we're about to have this coming Saturday. The 5v5 with Bivol and Zinad involved in what otherwise would have been an undisputed matchup. Nonetheless, we get to see Dimitry Bivol and his masterful performances or his masterful boxing back in action. So I'll leave you guys with that. Have yourselves a great night. This is the Toma Todito Boxing Show. I'm Heck Cali. Take care.